Michael.
What you up to, buddy?
Not much, man. About to get snowed in, looks like.
Oh, yeah? Nice.
Yeah.
We've got tornado warnings here.
Oh, that's what one of my other athletes said there in Nashville. Said it was like 70 or something today, and it's supposed to like drop like crazy and super windy, and so
yeah,
it doesn't sound like too much fun.
I know. I woke up and bundled up and put my gloves on and everything to walk the dog, and I walk outside and it was like 78 or 70 degrees.
Yeah, it's 7 here, so snow and ice, and it's gonna be worse tomorrow. So we did everything we could today, so we won't have to like leave the house or anything today or tomorrow, and then it's supposed to warm up a little bit next week. But good day to be bundled up inside.
Yeah, it's not a good day to go swimming out there.
It is not a good day to go swimming,
but
unless you want to brave the elements in the road. So today is not a good day, but every other day is a good day.
Yep, but it's a great day to talk about swimming. I'm looking at, we have a list here of like 8 things, and I thought I would just go down the list and read them, and then you could kind of talk about your points, some of your points.
Sure.
Here. Basically, this is a nuts and bolts approach to just being a better triathlon swimmer, period. Stronger,
faster, and more efficient. Yeah, all the above.
All right, let's get right into it, man. Number 1, here's what it says. You're wasting your time with drills. If you want to get better at drills, do drills. If you want to get better at swimming, swim more. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, man, this is probably one of my biggest pet peeves and points of kind of controversy when I get into talking about this with people who coach themselves, or people who read magazines, or who go to like a master's practice, or even other coaches. You know, they really tell you there's just a lot of misinformation out there that in order to become an efficient open water swimmer, which is what triathlon is, it's not pool swimming, it's open water swimming, and that you have to do all of these drills, and that's what's going to make you a better swimmer. And all it does is teaches you to do drills better, and these drills don't in any way incorporate strength. And they don't really, in my opinion, incorporate anything that is a prerequisite for faster swimming. The catch-up drill, I think it's absolutely one of the worst drills you can tell a new swimmer to do, because it really just hampers and slows down somebody's biomechanics and their neuromuscular pattern to be slow and to really basically stall in the water. Catch-up drill, for those listening, is when you have your left arm out in front, all the way extended, and then you do one big right. You do one stroke with your right, and then as soon as it touches the left up in front, then you start again. And what that really does is it's for pool swimmers, it helps you kind of exaggerate and really focus on the catch. But it also creates a huge hitch in your stroke. Like anytime it's a big total immersion drill too, and I can usually spot within the first probably 2 to 3 minutes of working with an athlete if they've done it before, because it's evident in their stroke. If you want to focus on one arm, then literally swim one length of the pool with one arm.
Oh yeah.
Because you have to do fast turnover to do that. Not, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to pause, and I'm going to do a stroke, and I'm going to pause, and you get slower, and you get slower, and you get slower. And it might look pretty, and you might look like you're, becoming something more efficient when it comes to looking smooth, but you're just going to continue to be slow. And that's one of the many, many drills that people continually waste their time on. We touched on that in a previous podcast when I talked about percentages. And your return on investment is, if you're swimming a 3,000 and you waste 15 minutes of that doing drills, and the rest of the time you do swimming, well, the rest of the time you're just reinforcing bad habits. You're not immediately going to pick up what you do from those drills. So what do you think is going to happen when you get into open water? Which one of those large buckets of time do you think is going to take precedent when it comes to jumping in the water for a mass start swim? I'm going to go with your poor form and your other 2,500 meters of actual swimming versus the small perfections you think you may have made in your drills.
Yeah, and I think that was a cool point you made before about how, it's kind of a big deal to, take time out, go down to the pool, get in the pool, and then, it it can be a 2 to 3 hour deal, and why spend 15, 20, 30 minutes of that doing drills when you could be swimming and cut the whole visit to the pool down in general. And
it's just a total. Everybody knows the correct form. Like, what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to reach far, early forearm catch, extend all the way back, and repeat. And then you have things like these high elbow drills that honestly, like, they used to just irritate me, and now I just find them I just find them humorous. That people act like a high elbow is a prerequisite for fast swimming. Well, go look at the Olympics. Go look at some of the world record holders and tell me if they have a high elbow and they move their arms like that. Because the answer is no. None of them move like that, and none of them have to. Especially if you want to go watch even an ITU race where they're sprinting. Their arms are just going as fast as they can, and their object is to pull as much water as you can. Literally, nothing you do above the water matters. It's all about what you do below the water. So you can be as pretty as you want to be above the water, but if you're not catching and pulling a lot of water, then you're not doing anything. That's worthwhile.
So you're talking about turnover and the ability to have turnover, and that leads us to number 2, which is building swim fitness is not fancy, smooth, or calm. It is powerful and purposeful.
Yep. Yeah. You remember me saying this a lot of times when we used to do the open water swim clinics back in Nashville. Is you guys who look like they're literally trying to pet the water. Mm-hmm. Like, they're literally afraid to bust their hand through the surface of the water like it's a sheet of glass. And that's just a result of watching too many videos, watching too many, trying to think too much. Like, swimming is so technical that you see people, you have to slow it down to make this stroke, and then you're going to exit, then you're going to enter, and you're thinking about this, and you're like, oh my God, I have really no idea what to do. I have to think the whole time. And that's might be good for a pool where you have your own lane, you have no contact, you have no current, you have no waves. You're not trying to corner anything. You want to use your upper body most of the time and not your legs. And that's why it's just a totally different. It's almost a totally different sport, open water swimming versus actual, pool swimming, and that's why you can't try to replicate what you see as a pool swimmer with these long galloping strokes unless you have like a certain type of morphology and you're built a certain way. But you see people in the open water and they look strong. You never say that person looks really smooth. You look at that person, you say, that person looks strong. Like, they are moving through the water, and they look powerful, and they look purposeful.
Mm-hmm. So, in a nutshell, you're kind of saying that you got most people should understand basically the stroke. It's just a matter of building your strength and ability to articulate that stroke over and over and as fast as you can do it. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, a lot of times with we do a lot of strength work, and we do a lot of stuff with the band, which is just upper body work, which forces you to use the right technique. But there'll be some swim sets that I'll dish out in the activity comments. I'll literally say, I don't even want you to think. I just want you to swim as fast as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. And what that's doing is it's raising your anaerobic and aerobic thresholds and creating greater arm fitness so you can hold the correct form for longer. I mean, you need to understand that, and I use this analogy all the time, and I'll use it again. I think I even used it in an earlier podcast, but Michael Jordan, fourth quarter, his front of the shots hitting the rim. What's happening? Did he just forget how to his shooting mechanics? No, his fitness is gone. Tiger Woods, when he was coming up in the PGA and he was really starting to struggle on the back nine, it was because his fitness wasn't there. What did he do? He started to lift weights, started to get more conditioned. What happened? Obviously, he basically took over golf as we know it for that period of time. Yeah. And so you have to create a level of fitness to be able to execute a certain technique and hold a certain form for a certain period of time.
Now, I want to throw out something because in my learning curve, it took me, you talk about a lot of these drills and what people are thinking about, what they're doing with their arms and all that stuff. And I think a big part of that problem is you start thinking about your arms so much that you forget about your lats and your core, and really how that is driving so much more of your power than people even imagine.
People often think that you swim with your shoulders, which is totally false. Mm-hmm. You don't swim with your shoulders; you swim with your lats, and then you work on your biceps and triceps. But really, you should think of your lats as the pulley, mm-hmm. and you should think of your forearm as the lever. As your paddle. And that's what I really try to drive into my athletes is like, think of your form as the paddle, and instead of trying to think of moving through the water, you need to think of water as a means to get to where you're going. So when you grab the water, you're essentially pushing yourself forward. So you want that resistance. You're not trying to move through it, smoothly and effortlessly. You're trying to grab it, push the water backwards, because when you push that resistance backwards, you're pushing yourself forwards.
Right. And we could get into the technique of that a little bit more, but when I think of when you're pulling that side back and your let's say your right arm is pulling that back and your left arm is thrusting forward, like you always talk about, get out there as far as you can.
Yeah. It's
creating a lever switch or something that's as you reach out, that is sort of pulling that thing back for you. In other words,
yep, exactly.
That's why I feel like when I'm swimming my best is when I'm doing that sort of stuff. I'm working my core, and what do you call it? You call it getting on a rivet, sort of just like your body is going back and forth. And you're using both sides. You're not just trying to pull all the way with one, but you're using the momentum of the other side to pull it, or to use the core to kind of pull it for you. And it should be pointed out here, now you've swam what? What's your best Ironman? Sub 55? At Ironman?
Yeah, I think I've got a 52 and a 53 in there.
Okay. And you've taken me basically from not being able to swim a length of a pool to, I think my best is 105. My best Ironman swim. So, this stuff is not necessarily the easy work, but it pays off. And I really do think it's the best way to do it is to swim a lot.
I mean, and I think looking back at your first, you took up swimming in 2013.
Yeah.
And you swam the most difficult course, one of the most difficult courses for a first timer in Wisconsin, being a mass start in a lake, open water, and you churned out a 120.
Yeah.
Which was good enough for out of like 3,000 people, it was good enough for like 536. So you were in the top 25%. Coming from no swimming background, you were able to be well above average swim time. And so when I hear people say, "Oh, you just can't get much better," I'm like, stop making the excuses. Like, decide you want to get better. And like, you obviously decided that you wanted to do better and be a better swimmer. And I think a lot of that had to do with you learned to enjoy it. Like, you learned to love the open water aspect. You learned to embrace it. So it became more attractive to you, which other people would just find excuses to not do better at it. There's always room for improvement, even in your strongest discipline. There's always room. It might not be these huge chunks of time that you'll continue to take off and take off and take off. But from a 120 to a 105 is a huge leap. My first Ironman swim was like a 103, and I think my PR is a 52. I'm still making jumps. Mm-hmm. I was 37th overall out of however many people this last year at Wisconsin, which is my best one yet. I just don't give up. Your gains might seem smaller, but the percentage you creep up is actually larger. But yeah, it's just about absorbing it. And I tell people all the time, like when I start to work with them, just forget everything you've learned or you've read or you've seen on YouTube for the most part, and let's just do this, and then we can talk more about it later.
Yeah.
And you just have to buy into it.
And because I remember, being a beginning swimmer still, and one of the things I never realized when I started was that there literally are zones in swimming as well. You think about it in terms of running and biking, and it's sort of easy to figure those things out, but most people when they start swimming are just trying to swim. You know what I mean? It's like it seems like the hardest thing in the world, and you're just out of gas and sucking wind the whole time, and it just seems like it's one speed and it's like all out. But realistically, you can find, I always call it jogging in the water, but you can find that the more you build your strength and fitness, the more easier it is for you to find sort of that zone 2 where you're kind of going hard, but you're not killing yourself.
Exactly.
And I think that's an important thing for beginning swimmers to kind of understand, is that the better swim shape you get in, the more you can articulate, move around in those zones, and you can turn it up a notch, or you can fade it back and sort of slow it way down, and it literally doesn't take as much out of you. All right,
absolutely, yeah, absolutely, great point.
When we went, when I started swimming with you, you basically told me to get paddles and a pull buoy. That was it, And now I go to the pool a lot, and that brings us to number 3. And it's like a lot of people bring these mesh bags. And number 3 point is, the bigger your mesh bag, the slower you are committed to being. What do you mean by that?
One, it's just you're wasting time. I mean, you can't tell me that you need a huge mesh bag with 7 pieces of equipment in it in order to do your swim set. If I see that, I see somebody who's dedicated to wasting time and taking as much rest as possible without working on proper fitness. You've got your snorkel, you've got your kickboard, you've got your rubber. Yeah, you've got your stick, you've got your rubber shorts, you have your, So I'm going to do 200 kick, then I'm going to do 200 pull, then I'm going to do 200 paddles, and I'm like, what are you even doing? Like, do you go to the track and run 200 and then sidestep for 200 and then jog backwards for 200 and then walk on your hands for 200 and then skip for 200? Like, what did you even just do?
Wow.
You just wasted time. And people do it literally all the time. Like, I know the pool that I go to, there are these certain set of guys that come in and they literally switch like every 200 to 400. And I think they do it because they're bored. Which I can totally understand, because a lot of people suffer from just swim boredom because they don't have a purpose. I just need to get 2,000 done today, and I'm just going to get it done. But really, you're not really you're going through the motions, and you're not getting better. You're really just stunting your growth because you're continuously staying slow and just confusing your body. Like, only work on a few things at a time. And don't overcomplicate it, and just throw your kickboard away. I mean, dear God, like, the swimmers you see in the pool, they use their legs that much because every half of a millisecond matters. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the statistics and the data from, like, they do these tests like on hydrodynamics and fluid dynamics, what actual propulsion a person gets from their legs when it comes to the pool, and it's less than 6%.
6%?
Less than 6%. And then you take less than 6% of propulsion from your kick, and you look and you understand how large your muscles, especially for triathletes who come from a cyclist or running background, some of them have quads and hamstrings that are the size of tree trunks. Mm-hmm. The larger the muscle, the more blood it takes. The more blood it takes to move, guess what? The more oxygen it takes. Well, guess what it's taken away from? Your lungs. Guess what you need it for? To breathe. Guess where it should be going? Your arms. Guess where you need to save your legs for the rest of the race? I don't know, maybe 112 miles, maybe 26.2, but that's just me. And you see, oh, these people have these monster kicks, I should do that too. Wrong. Totally wrong. Now, should you kick a little bit towards the end? Absolutely. Even out the blood flow makes T1 not so hard because your legs don't feel like rocks. Other than that, use your upper body, learn to control your legs with your core, and minimize the focus of your session to perfect one thing, and don't think of anything else. Mm-hmm. And then once you do that, build on it. Don't just continually confuse your body, because the more you confuse it, the more you are going to stay at that one speed, and that's why people say they can't get any better in swimming. It's because they just continually do the wrong things and they repeat it. You are what you repeatedly do.
Yeah. All right. Number 4 is bigger paddles don't mean you're stronger. They usually mean you're lazier.
1,000%. And especially with dudes. And you see this all the time. I mean, I see it all the time. That you've got these guys they're using both straps on their paddles. We'll get to that here in a second. But they've got these humongous paddles that they in no way, shape, or form can use them for their intended purpose, which is to hold form using more resistance and get stronger. Most triathletes can barely use a paddle that's larger. That's much larger in diameter than their hand, and keep form. Because if you use a huge paddle, yes, will you be able to kind of do less strokes down the pool? Yep, because you're using a little more surface area when you do pull. Now, when you take those off, here comes the problem. You're not going to have that added resistance, and what's your arm turnover going to look like? If you're used to swimming with very large paddles and you can't hold form and it takes you 9 strokes to get to the end of the pool, that's not going to be a very high turnover. You're doing a lot of gliding.
Yeah.
So take those paddles off, put you in some open water, and put you going against the current. Sorry, buddy.
That's
Sorry,
trouble.
buddy. Yeah, it's big time trouble. And the other thing is that would fix itself very quickly if anybody listening out there, if you've got paddles, stroke makers are the paddles that I recommend all of my athletes use. So again, stroke makers, if you're listening, I'm happy to sell out for some ad space. But the normal set of paddles in the instructions, they'll have 2 rubber cords, and they want you to insert one around your wrist and one where your fingers are. And you know that I am a big proponent of no wrist cord.
Yep.
And if you're out there listening, take out the wrist cord, swim with just the fingers. And what's going to happen is if you enter the water incorrectly, with your wrist first, which a lot of people do, well, the paddle's going to separate from your hand and it's going to pop off. If you drop your elbow and try to slide your hand back where the palm of your hand is facing the bottom of the pool, again, that resistance of the water, it's going to pop and it's going to release, and the paddle's going to come off. And lastly, and most importantly, is if you try to pull your hand out of the water really, really quick with your big high elbow catch, then guess what? Paddle's going to separate, water's going to come in there, and it's going to pop off. And if you can start, and a lot of people will do it, and they won't be able to hold form for a 25. So unless you want to just continually be that guy that has to stop and put their paddle on, you're going to self-correct. And by self-correcting, you're going to start swimming more efficiently and more purposeful and more powerful. But start off with swim paddles that are just a little bit bigger than your hand. The purpose is to swim stronger, but to also be able to keep a high turnover. If you get too big of paddles, you're just compromising form, and you're going to create a biomechanic tendency to use your arms to move more slowly. And as we mentioned before, you head into a heavy current or chop, you're not going to have that. You're not going to have that speed.
All right, speaking of heavy current and chop, number 5 is open water swim training is not the same as swim training.
Yeah, and we kind of covered that.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of it in the previous couple. It's a totally different monster. It's a totally different sport. That's why you see it's very, very difficult to transfer from pool swim success and have open water success all at the same time. It's just difficult to do because it's a different sport. It's contact, it's power. You have to be able to sustain it. You have to be able to save your legs. It's just totally different monster. I think we kind of covered a lot of that in the previous 4 to 5 bullets.
Yeah, while we're on it, let's just drop a little something on sighting, because obviously,
God.
What? Bad?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I just know that I think a lot of people, like, I got so wrapped up in sighting that I keep sighting all the time, and I don't trust the flow of things. I mean, like, what kind of suggestion do you have for that? Because obviously, if you go off course, you're creating a way longer swim, and I mean, that's like number one object. I mean, would be to swim the shortest distance.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think in the pool, I'll have athletes on their 4th length of the 100, sight halfway through the pool and then don't look up again, and then see where they end up on the wall. And generally, a great way is to sight. And in the pool, it's easier because you can swim with the black line underneath you and keep your arms literally prevent them from crossing, so they're always on the outside of the black line, and that alone keeps you square, and that alone keeps you swimming straight.
Yeah.
From a sighting standpoint, practice, always sight before you breathe. Don't breathe before you sight. If you were told that, it was wrong. Sight, then breathe, and keep going. And I think, some courses are different. If the waves are super choppy and you're just trying to get a glimpse, then you're going to have to sight more.
Yeah.
If there's, like a chop and stuff, if there's a huge glare, then you're going to have to sight more because you're just looking for a glimpse.
Yeah.
You're just looking for a glimpse. But if you have good form and you practice good form, then your chance of swimming straight are much greater. But again, that's something in the open water you just kind of have to practice, where you sight once, you commit to taking 10 strokes without looking, and then you see what kind of direction you're headed. And the more and more you do that, the more and more you're either going to correct it or you're going to learn to trust yourself. And a lot of it is just trusting yourself. Like, I know that I'm swimming, on course. And we used to work on this a lot too, is, I'll have people swim straight at the buoy. And then once you sight and breathe and you put your head back down, visualize keeping your right arm and your left arm on the outside of that buoy and visualizing it. And just by doing that, you're going to keep your entry square, which is going to keep you from crossing over, which is the reason people go zigzag. And if you do that and just picture and you pop your head back up, more than likely you're going to be within, a half body right or left of the buoy. And the more and more you do that, more and more practice, you're going to swim straighter, sight less, and trust yourself more.
Got it. Number 6. Would you rather spend $1,000 on a wetsuit or spend an extra 1,000 meters per workout? Most people pick spending over the swimming.
I mean, yeah. I think that's probably never going to change, unfortunately. I'd be on a losing end of a crusade. My wetsuit I bought for like $400 6 years ago, and I still have it. The wetsuit isn't going to change your dedication to getting better at a sport. It is not going to make you swim that much faster because, unfortunately, the higher end wetsuits that cost so much, the reason they cost so much is because their panels and the way that the arms are positioned are for faster swimmers. And the panels that they have in the forearm construction, they're only gonna benefit you if you actually know how to swim and swim well. They're not gonna make you float faster. There is no such thing as floating faster. If you want to get a wetsuit that's like 15 millimeters thick and burn up to death, then you might have a chance to float faster. But there is no such thing. Pick swimming over that, and don't worry about the wet. You'd take 10 or 15 minutes off your Ironman time, just committing to an extra 1,000 meters of purposeful swim work than you are spending an extra $700 on a wetsuit.
Got it. Number 7, this is one of my favorites. Shove a pull buoy in between your legs and come back and talk to me in a month. Yep.
If you're listening out there and you are struggling with your swim, I challenge you to go to the pool Monday or tomorrow, swim a 100 for time, and then swim a 400 for time. Write those down. And then for a whole month, if you can commit to swimming at least 3 times a week and only swimming with the pull buoy, I challenge you to, swimming with the pull buoy and trying to practice just using your upper body and fast turnover. I challenge you to come back after a month and tell me, and write into the cast or whatever you feel, email us. By then we'll probably 1-800 Crushing Iron number. You can call in and tell me that your time didn't drop more over that month than it has over the last 6.
In 1 month?
Yeah, in a month. Do it. Give me a shout. Tell me I'm wrong, or say, yeah, I got it. I'll continue to do this and see what happens.
In my journeys as a hack swim coach, that's usually the only thing I ever tell people is when I mean, seriously, like especially if I see them swimming in the water next to me or whatever, and then they may ask me a question or whatever at the end of the lane, I'll be watching them and they'll be swimming in the water and their legs will be almost 90 degrees down, and they're pulling their whole leg, like it's almost like they're basically walking, but their feet are just off the bottom of the pool, and they're trying to pull that whole resistance load through the water, and it's just not working. And I'm like, why don't you just put a pull buoy between your legs, prop that up, and get used to swimming with the right angle and the right form of your body. And nobody seems to, everybody thinks it's cheating. I'm like, yeah, but it makes it easier, and you might like swimming a little bit more. And
it's going to make you more efficient. I mean, there really is no such thing as too big of a pull buoy. I mean, there really aren't. I mean, if you see a lot of the pro squads, they'll use these pull buoys that are plastic and hollow, and they're huge. And depending on what phase they're in, you'll fill them with water to either make them more buoyant or less buoyant. But the more buoyant you are, the more time you have to perfect the right stroke. And once you can do that, then you can work on minimizing that and making it tougher. But if you're just going to be dedicated to repeating bad habits and dragging in the water, then pick up duathlon.
Okay, number 8, the tools you need and the tools that you don't need.
Again, we kind of covered that. Yeah, I mean, a pull buoy, which you're swimming is the cheapest of all the sports. I mean, it really is. The pull buoy usually is provided by pretty much any pool that you're going to go to. A set of paddles, again, Stroke Makers makes great paddles. They're like $12 to $15. Don't go anything over a size 1.0. Get a set of those, and then use a band for your ankles. And don't go purchase a $35, $50 band from Tier or anywhere else. Just use a race belt, an old tire tube, or anything you can do to tie your ankles together. Use that, and that's all you need. I mean, you're looking at like $15 in expenses.
On the band part, at what point and how often do you recommend using something like that?
In the beginning, once you've used a pull buoy for a month, I recommend inserting some band work with like doing 25s only with tons and tons of rest, just to get a feel for it, and then slowly move to where you're maybe doing 50s with tons of rest. I don't know. I don't have any athletes that I coach or know many that can do hundreds or longer unless they're just incredibly, incredibly efficient in the water. And generally for me, as the season goes, I can kind of gauge my swim fitness by my 50 meter band time. And if I can get my 50 meter band time to around 39 to 41, then I know I'm in really, really good open water shape. But that's just for me. But if you're going to use it, I would start with doing 25s with like what I call equal rest. So if your 25 takes you 30 seconds, then you rest for 30 seconds. If it takes you 20 seconds, you rest for 20 seconds.
Got it. Yeah, so when we're talking about the band, just to be clear, that's tying your ankles together. Do you do it sometimes though with the pull buoy, right? Or
yeah, I will when I do longer sets, and that's sometimes with or without paddles. But that's kind of more once I know I'm holding the correct form, and I'll move into using it with the pull buoy with either doing hundreds or 200s, or then adding paddles as well and doing something longer like 400s to 800s.
Okay, got it. All right, and you're gonna give a couple workouts in a minute, right? But there's a note on here that says for Ironman swim, I think you're talking about, right? Is why you think the swim cutoff should move from 220 to 140. There's a lot of people.
Yeah,
let's move Kona and let's move the swim time. Let's reshape the whole Ironman.
Hey, look, man. Here's the thing. 220, I think, is a 3-minute 100.
Mm-hmm. No, it's more than that, isn't it?
A 3-minute 100. You can walk the length of the pool, I think, in 3 minutes.
Oh, easily, probably.
I mean, like walk 100 in 3 minutes. I think that the reason it should be changed is not because I'm a good swimmer. If anything, that would be counterintuitive to somebody who's a strong swimmer, because that would preach working on your swim more. So it actually would take my advantage away as a strong swimmer, because it'd make people focus more. My point in dropping it from 220 to 140 is I believe people would begin to take it more seriously. There are more deaths in the swim than, well, all the deaths that you hear in any kind of triathlon come in the swim. And I know some of them aren't preventable from a cardiac standpoint, but I think from a prepared standpoint, it's safer. It would require so much more dedication and so much more diligent training and so much more commitment to doing it that I think it would help the sport overall, because I think people look at the 2:20 swim as a joke. And
it's actually 3:30.
Okay, dear God, 3.5 minutes to do 100. Yeah, I think it's ridiculous versus the time standards for the other ones. I think people would take it more seriously and prepare themselves better for the rest of the race. And I don't know. I think triathlon, the reason some of the annual numbers are is because triathlon has become trendy. It hasn't become. It's losing. People aren't really in love with the sport. They just want to participate in the trend. And they see 2:20 and they hear 3.5 minutes. And come on, man. Swimming even just like 3 times a week with even like an average coaching or average commitment, you're going to finish the swim, period. I just think it would raise the quality of the overall experience for everybody. It would be easier on the race directors. It would be on medical and emergency personnel, and it would just require a better standard when it comes to being prepared. And I also think they would be less likely to cancel swims. I think they could use it as a buffer. 140 swim conditions, Chattanooga, Louisville, etc. Florida, ocean, open water, which could have like turbulent waves and something. Well, guess what? Now you've got a 40-minute buffer if you deem it necessary to use it instead of just straight up canceling the swim. But anyway, I just think it should be taken more seriously overall. And I think 3.5 minutes to do 100 is people just see it as I can just swim once a week and just make it through. And I don't think that's any way to approach anything.
Yeah, I can't disagree. So now it is mid-December. We got the new year coming around, and you got a couple of, kind of mainstay sort of swim workouts you can lay out for people.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're out there listening, this is a great time of year, no matter when your first race is to do a lot of anaerobic work and a lot of what I call kind of strength and tech work. And what I mean by strength and tech work is that's going to be where you kind of bring in the bands and a buoy. And so I'll give you this is probably more for I'll start first with kind of the beginner to intermediate, and they're just called what I call heart rate 25s.
Okay.
And the heart rate 25s are just what they sound. They're hard, they're fast, they're only 25s. We're talking maximum rest, but you need to pick a number. So if I'm going to say I'm going to leave on 45 every time I do a 25. So the set is this. You're going right into 40 25s on 45 seconds, and then you're going to finish off with 1,000 pull. You're going to work your anaerobic just by swimming fast with fast arms, the 40 25s. I'll choose to leave on 45 seconds. That means I have 45 seconds to swim the 25, take my rest, and then before I start again.
Okay, so if that takes me, I don't know, just say 30 seconds to do a 25, then I would rest for 15?
Rest. Absolutely, yep.
Okay.
Yep. So if you're leaving on the 45, you're going to leave on the 60, the 45, the 30, the 15, back to the 60, and so on and so on. So you're going to do anaerobic stuff. You're going to work on fast arms. You're going to work on increasing your overall swim and arm fitness. And then you're going to work on some muscular endurance at the end with the 1,000 pull easy.
Pull buoy.
Yep, pull buoy only. Yep, pull buoy only. And so that's kind of that's really for anybody, but very easy, especially because it's only a 25. If you can't do 1,000 pull, obviously you can cut that down to where you currently are in your swim training and ability, and you can move it down to a 400, a 500, 600, whatever you feel you're the most comfortable with.
So like a 20, maybe even just like a 20. Round of 20, 25s, and then
absolutely. It's
500 cool down.
Exactly. You can break something like that down very, very easily to 20 25s, 30 25s, 40 25s, to cooling down to either a 250, a 500, a 750, or a 1000.
Got it. And the cool down. Why? I got a quick question about cool down.
Yeah.
Because I think, I mean, that's always part of the deal. But why is that important? You know.
I always tell people I want you to slow it down again and kind of recoup especially if you haven't really focused on technique and form. I want you to finish with good technique and form.
Okay.
And because it's what you leave the pool thinking and feeling. And so I like for you to leave the pool thinking and feeling the water, feeling in control and holding good form, not thrashing and anaerobically just sprinting.
Got it. All right. And what's
the second one, this is for a little more advanced. This is something that is great, in my opinion, year-round. So if you want to write it, please feel free to write this one down, use it, and modify it. You can modify this one just based on how many rounds you go. I usually go 4 rounds, and it's all strength and band work. And it goes like this. You're going to warm up 400 easy. That's 400 choice. Easy, easy, easy. Just trying to get a good feel for the water. Then you're going to do 8 25s of half the length sculling, the other half the length swim easy. And what sculling is, you'll need to kind of probably YouTube it, is where it's kind of a modified breaststroke, but the main purpose of it is to get a good feel for the water on your forearms. The main set is going to go like this, and this is just 1 round. The main set is 850s band only. Okay. Obviously, if you're starting out, you want to start off with doing 825s band only. Those are all hard, and they're on 15 seconds rest. So let's say if you're a beginner, I'd probably go 825s. If you're more advanced, you can go 850s band only, hard on 15 seconds rest.
Okay.
Then you're going to hop right into 4 100s, high tempo, pull buoy only on 10 seconds rest. And high tempo would be your kind of your half Ironman. You're kind of the one we talk about where we're kind of swimming on a rivet. It's steady, but not it's steady and in control, not anaerobic and I can barely breathe.
Okay.
Obviously, if that's too hard, move the instead of doing 4 100s, do 4 50s or do 2 100s. The next, you're going to do a 400 all out at Olympic effort. So that's pretty close to a 400 all out sprint.
Okay. With nothing?
With nothing, just straight up swimming.
Okay.
Then you're going to do a 100 easy, and that's the round. So you can repeat that for as many rounds as necessary. I do 4 rounds. Usually takes me, if I do 4 rounds, about an hour and 5, hour and 15, depending on the day. But it's one that easily you can modify. It works high tempo, high anaerobic threshold work. It works on your band, your strength and your form. And the reason I put it in that order is because the 850s on the band hard really get me focused on grabbing the water and pulling it and getting a lot of strength from it. Then I move into taking the band off, and I get a little bit of relief with the pull buoy. Still saving my legs, not even using them. Able to include a little more muscular endurance. Feeling pretty good, still moving strong, still moving at a high effort, all strength, all upper body. Take off the pull buoy, haven't used my legs at all. Pop into the 400, and I've got a really good feel for the water, so I can swim a really steady and a really confident 400 with good form, and then I start over again.
Mm-hmm. I like it. You got me pumped, man. I'm ready to get in the water.
You're not going to the pool.
No, not today. There's tornado warning.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm sure it's probably not even open.
That's probably right. It's they probably got it closed already.
Yeah, for sure. With tornado warnings, man, I can't tell you how many times I've been down there with the lightning thing, and they've shut the pool down. But anyway, so I guess I'll ask again, but it doesn't seem like anybody really wants to leave reviews or read the podcast.
You know what? That's okay. If you're scared to leave a review, that's all right. Obviously, I'm super pumped. Our goal is to hit over 1,000 downloads by December 31st, and we've already hit that. So people are obviously listening, which to me is what matters the most.
Yep.
and you guys like what we're doing because we're getting more listens and more downloads and more subscribers. So that's awesome. Again, feel free to leave a review or feel free to email us and let us know what you think, crushingiron@gmail.com. And if you have anything, we'd love to interact with you guys. And, we really do want to keep this podcast geared towards the beginner, intermediate age group athlete who is still looking for growth and knowledge within the sport. And we want to be that kind of that kind of safe place to where no question is too dumb and you're not going to feel like too much of a newbie to ask it. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. And that's what I'm here for, to ask the dumb questions.
That's true. And I would also like to piggyback off the celebratory 1,000 downloads, as I also did make it an entire week with Toll House cookies in the fridge, and I didn't even make any.
Hey, now it's time to break them out, buddy.
I know, man. I'm just going to go celebrate. 1,000 downloads equals cookie time.
1,000 calories.
I don't know about that, but that's a lot of Toll House. That's like probably... I don't know. I'll have to look. It's probably what, 90? Nah.
Like 10 cookies? You could do that.
I'll let you guys know in the next. I'll update the next podcast how many Toll House calories I took in today.
All right, that is a plan. I look forward to hearing that, actually.
Yeah, I bet you do.
All right, man. I appreciate your insight on swimming.
Hey, anytime, man. It's one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah, mine too, and I hope it is for everybody else. And we will. The other thing is I want to just remind everyone that our thing is we're going to do these. We're going to release them on Mondays and Thursdays, so you can kind of look for that and put it in your calendar and just kind of keep an eye out. So consistent pattern of Monday and Thursday release of our podcast. Right on?
Yep, right on, man.
All right, man. Well, have a great day.
You too, man.